Liam Dela Cruz. His world was small, a broken wooden hut near the old Cemon Cow Well, a place where the poor fetched water and gossip flowed as freely as the rust-stained water from its pipes. Liam's family barely survived on his mother's vegetable stall earnings and the coins his father made fixing old radios. Yet from that poverty came something extraordinary, a mind that refused to stay ordinary. While other children spent their days running barefoot through puddles, Liam sat under the shade of a mango tree, his eyes fixed on the clouds as if he were reading invisible equations written in the sky. His teachers at the local public school said he was strange. He never talked much, but when he did, his words carried weight. At only 8 years old, he could recite full pages of textbooks, solve algebraic problems meant for high schoolers, and even correct his teachers when they made small mistakes. Every night, when the city fell silent and the stars blinked over the horizon, Liam would sit near the flickering streetlight outside his home, his notebook resting on his knees. The hum of insects and the distant splash of the Cemon Cow Well were his only companions. He didn't have proper paper or pencils, only bits of torn cardboard and charcoal from burnt wood. Yet with those, he drew complex symbols, shapes, and numbers that no one around him could understand. His mother would watch him from the doorway, exhausted from the market, wondering where her son's brilliance came from. Some neighbors whispered that he was a child touched by angels, while others muttered in fear, calling him unnatural. But Liam never cared for their words. He was fascinated by how things worked, the rhythm of engines, the ticking of clocks, the whisper of the wind as it moved through the narrow streets. Everything around him was a puzzle, and he lived to solve it. One day, as he sat beside the Cemon Cow Well, he found an old, broken radio tossed aside. Its wires were tangled, its speakers cracked, and its casing was eaten by rust. Most would have thrown it away, but Liam saw potential. With careful fingers, he began twisting wires, connecting loose ends, and creating circuits using scraps of metal he'd found in the junkyard. Within hours, the radio buzzed to life, filling the air with faint music. People gathered around, astonished. How could a poor boy with no training fix something so complicated? But to Liam, it wasn't magic, it was logic, the kind that burned brightly in his mind even when hunger clawed at his stomach. In that moment, under the fading Cebu sunset, the legend of the Brain Man was born. From that tiny corner of poverty, beside the rusting Cemon Cow Well, emerged a spark of genius that the world would one day struggle to understand. As Liam grew older, the world around him began to change, though his life near the Cemon Cow Well stayed just as hard. Poverty clung to him like a second skin, but his mind continued to outgrow the limits of his surroundings. At 12, he had already built small machines from scraps, fans powered by bicycle chains, lamps that ran on salt water, and toy cars that moved with magnet coils scavenged from broken phones. His mother, proud yet worried, often told him that too much thinking might bring trouble. "Liam," she would whisper, "people don't always understand those who are different." And she was right. The neighbors admired his intelligence but also feared it. Some said he was cursed, others believed he had made a deal with spirits living under the well. But Liam never stopped. He had dreams bigger than Cebu's crowded skyline, dreams that stretched beyond the slums and the dull echo of poverty. He believed that every problem had a solution, if only the mind was brave enough to find it. One afternoon, a group of professors from Manila visited Cebu after hearing rumors of a boy genius from the well. They came with notebooks, strange machines, and questions that most adults couldn't even answer. Liam, barefoot and nervous, sat across from them on a bamboo chair as they asked him to solve patterns, equations, and memory tests. What shocked them was not just his accuracy but his speed. he could recall hundreds of random numbers in order, calculate complex figures in his head, and predict mechanical reactions with near-perfect precision. When they compared his results to known records, they realized his IQ surpassed the average human limit. The professors exchanged glances, astonished that such brilliance existed in a boy who lived beside a rusted well and studied by candlelight. They offered to take him to Manila, promising education and a better life. But Liam hesitated, looking back at his mother's weary face and the home he had built with his own hands. Fame began to grow around him like a wave. News spread across the Philippines about the brain man of Cebu. Reporters came, scientists wrote articles, and people crowded outside his house just to see him. Yet, despite all the praise, Liam felt an emptiness inside. He missed the simplicity of his quiet nights, the sound of the well bubbling under the moonlight, and the laughter of his friends who once played with him barefoot on the muddy roads. He realized that being a genius did not mean being happy, it meant carrying a mind too heavy for a heart still young. In his eyes, the world was not divided by intelligence, but by kindness. And though he could calculate the distance between planets or design machines beyond his time, he still couldn't solve the equation of human loneliness that echoed in his soul. One stormy night, the skies over Cebu opened up with fury, and the rain came down in thick sheets that swallowed the narrow streets. The Cemon Cow Well overflowed, flooding the small houses built from tin and wood. Liam's home was among them. The water rushed in through the cracks, destroying the few books he had, soaking his drawings and inventions. His mother screamed for help as the muddy flood rose past her knees. Most people ran to higher ground, clutching their few possessions, but Liam stayed behind, his mind racing faster than the storm. He remembered how water always flowed downhill and how the old drainage system behind the well was blocked with debris. Without hesitation, he grabbed a rusted spade and began digging a narrow canal through the dirt, directing the water's path toward the lower fields. Hours later, drenched and shivering, he watched as the floodwaters slowly began to drain away from the homes. People gathered around him, silent in awe, realizing that the same boy they once called strange had just saved their neighborhood. The following week, engineers from the city came to inspect what had happened. When they saw the precision of Liam's improvised system, they were stunned. It wasn't luck, it was design. The canal's angle, depth, and structure followed exact mathematical patterns, the kind no untrained person should have known. The engineers offered to hire him as an assistant, and soon Liam began working on small projects, improving water flow and building low-cost devices to help poor families filter drinking water. His designs were simple but effective, earning recognition across the region. Word spread even further, catching the attention of scientists in the United States, who invited him to study under scholarship. Yet, even with the promise of a new life abroad, Liam remained humble. He never forgot the muddy streets, the smell of rain near the well, or the people who once doubted him. Years later, when he finally left for America, the people of Cebu gathered at the port to see him off. Children waved handmade signs, and old men bowed their heads in respect. The Brain Man had become more than a local legend, he was proof that brilliance could bloom even in poverty. From a rusted well and broken radios came a mind that reshaped how people saw intelligence. Liam looked back at his city one last time, the wind whipping through his hair, and whispered to his mother, "We came from nothing, but nothing can stop us now." His story spread far beyond the Philippines, inspiring generations across the world. The boy who once wrote on cardboard with charcoal had become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that genius isn't born in privilege, but in the hearts that dare to think differently, even when surrounded by the silence of struggle.